I am 78 years old, and there is something I wish someone had told me when I was young. For most of my life, I believed that being a good woman meant always agreeing with my husband, with my children, with my parents, with my friends, with my employer. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought strength meant endurance. I was completely wrong. For nearly 60 years, I tried to be flawless, the ideal wife, the devoted mother, the dutiful daughter, the reliable worker. And what did that give me in return? Constant exhaustion, silent bitterness, and a life that never truly felt like my own. 7 years ago, everything changed. My husband passed away after 42 years of marriage. Suddenly he was gone, and for the first time since I was a young woman, I was entirely on my own. That terrified me. Not only because I missed him, I did, but because I realized something far more frightening. I didn't know who I was without him. My entire identity had been built around belonging to others, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone who was always needed. But without those roles, who was I? What did I want? What brought me joy? I had no answers, and that realization shook me more than grief ever could. Let me go back a little. I married at 22. It was 1968, a very different world. Women didn't believe they had many options back then. At least we weren't taught that we did. My mother used to say, find a good husband and your life will be settled. So I did. He was kind, responsible, a provider, and I stepped neatly into my role. I ran the household, raised the children, put his ambitions before my own. I smiled when expected. I stayed silent when necessary. And no, I wasn't miserable. I loved my children deeply. There were moments of happiness. But deep inside, a quiet question followed me everywhere. Is this all my life will ever be? I ignored that question for decades. At 35, I wanted to study again. I loved books. I dreamed of teaching literature, but we couldn't afford it. The children came first. Later, he said. So I postponed my dreams. When the children grew up, I asked again. But retirement was approaching. His parents needed care, and maybe later. So I waited again. At 55, his parents were gone. I thought, and now it's finally my time. But our daughter divorced. She needed help with the grandchildren. How could I focus on myself then? So I waited once more. And then, at 71, my husband died. And suddenly, there was no one left to wait for. Here is the truth no one teaches women, especially women from my generation. We were taught that giving ourselves away made us worthy, that putting everyone else first made us virtuous, that our value came from service, not from selfhood. It sounds noble, but it's a dangerous lie. Because this is what I learned far too late. You cannot give endlessly without losing yourself. You cannot love fully while neglecting your own needs. You cannot empty yourself and expect fulfillment. I spent my life giving. And after my husband died, I looked at myself and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked worn out. She looked older than her years. She looked lonely. She felt unfamiliar. The first year alone was unbearable. Each morning there was no one to care for, no one to serve home, no schedule built around someone else. For 60 years, my purpose had been other people. Then something unexpected happened. 18 months later, I found a letter he had written before we married. In it, he spoke of my intelligence, my curiosity, my potential. He wrote about the future he imagined for me. I sat on the floor holding that letter and cried, because the woman he believed in, I had slowly erased her, not sudden, but little by little. I called it selflessness, but in truth, I was vanishing. That was the moment everything changed. At 72, I chose myself for the first time. I signed up for community college, literature, art history, philosophy, subjects I had loved my entire life. I was the oldest student in the room, and it didn't matter. For the first time in years, I felt awake. I began traveling. Short trips at first, places I had only imagined before. And then I did something truly revolutionary for me. I started saying no, it wasn't easy. When my children called, I sometimes said, I'm sorry, I already have plans. When friends invited me to things I didn't enjoy, I politely declined. And guess what? Nothing fell apart. People adapted, and I felt lighter than I ever had. Now at 78, I finally understand myself. I am not defined by who I belong to, not by who depends on me. I am simply me, a woman who loves books and art, who enjoys solitude, who travels freely, who says yes with intention and no without guilt. But here is the painful truth. I lost decades, 60 years spent becoming who others needed instead of who I was meant to be. 60 years of placing myself last, 60 years of shrinking, and those years will never return. So please hear what I wish I had heard earlier in life. Wanting more does not make you selfish. Choosing yourself does not make you unkind. Setting boundaries does not make you cruel. You believe you'll have time later. Later never comes. There is always another obligation, another person to prioritize, another excuse to delay your life, and one day you wake up old, having never truly lived for yourself. Don't do that. No one will ever hand you permission to live fully. No one will announce that it's finally your turn. You must decide that for yourself. If you want to learn, start now. If you want to change paths, do it now. If a relationship diminishes, you walk away. Not tomorrow, not as someday, now. It is never too late to choose yourself. This life is not a rehearsal. You only get one chance. And every day spent living for others alone is a day stolen from yourself. You can love your family and still have limits. You can be responsible and still pursue joy. You can be kind without erasing yourself. In fact, you love better when you live honest. Resentment poisons generosity. Unlived dreams become silent anger. We were taught to stay quiet, to accommodate, to disappear politely, and many of us did. You don't have to. You have freedoms we never had. Don't waste them. You will never please everyone. Someone will always call you selfish. Someone will always want more. The only question that matters is this: can you respect the life you're living? I watch young women today repeating the same patterns, apologizing for their desires, delaying their dreams, making themselves smaller. And I want to tell them, you matter. Your dreams matter. Your voice matters, not because of what you give, but because you exist. It took me 72 years to understand that I deserve space. Please don't wait that long. Your younger self needs you now. Your future self will be grateful. I've only lived for myself for 6 years. 6 out of 78, and they have been the happiest years of my life. I am freer now than I was at 30. If I could go back, I would start sooner. You still can, but only if you begin today. Not later, not when life gets easier, right now. So ask yourself, who are you living for? And make your choice before time makes it for you. The permission you're waiting for already exists. Go live.